The first sign wasn't a scream or a bang. It was silence. One by one, satellites winked out over Earth. Military uplinks, GPS constellations, weather monitors, gone. Then came the EMPs. Cities dimmed, skies grew quiet, planes plummeted, systems failed, power grids collapsed like dominoes. And then the sky opened. In the early hours over Nevada, the stars themselves began to shimmer unnaturally. Amateur astronomers, radio hobbyists, even bored insomniacs watching the sky, everyone saw it. A ripple, then a rupture. Space folded in on itself, and something massive began to unfurl into low orbit. They looked like metallic serpents at first, dozens of kilometer-long warships, bristling with bone-white plating and obsidian spines. Under their hulls, you could see flickering things that resembled wings, though they never flapped. The ships didn't obey gravity or physics or anything humans understood. They simply appeared, and they began to fall. Lieutenant Commander Reyna Sol didn't sleep much. That night, she hadn't even taken off her boots. Stationed at Los Alamos Space Research Facility, Reyna had command over the Orbital Defense Coordination Cell, a glorified term for a bunch of ex-NASA scientists with hacked-up AI and Cold War satellite weaponry. When the power flickered and alarms began to blare, she was already halfway to the control center. "Report," she barked as she burst in. Technicians stared wide-eyed at the screens. The feed was pure static, then jagged code. Alien symbols like claw marks across the display. Then came the sound. Not a broadcast, not even a message. Just a low, rumbling vibration that rattled bones and made teeth ache. One tech vomited. Another dropped to his knees, blood leaking from his ears. Reyna grit her teeth against the wave of nausea and forced herself to move. EMP protocols. Hardwire local systems. Give me visual, damn it. Against the odds, a single screen blinked into clarity, capturing footage from a Russian orbital drone still broadcasting in analog. Reyna stared. She saw Earth's orbit filled with alien ships, rotating in mathematically perfect formations. Hundreds, maybe thousands. And then they began to fire. It wasn't conquest. It was extermination. Kinetic rods, massive tungsten lances, fell from the heavens at terminal velocity. No explosions. No messy plasma beams. Just precise, instantaneous obliteration. Cities disappeared in seconds. Washington, Beijing, London, Islamabad, New Delhi, Cape Town, all gone. Reyna's hands trembled as she keyed in the override to launch Los Alamos's last resort defense systems, a battery of classified railguns and outdated nuclear interceptors. The project had never been meant for this. They were designed for theoretical meteor strikes, not armadas of alien warcraft. Still, they fired. Dozens of streaks shot into the sky. 3 alien ships were hit. One cracked and tumbled in flames, splitting apart and crashing into the Mojave. The others adjusted formation like a school of fish and resumed fire. That one kill changed everything. They could be hurt. By sunrise, the world was a graveyard. Reyna's team had suffered massive losses. Radiation pockets from downed alien craft, burning debris from orbital strikes, and waves of bioelectric interference rendered all electronics useless outside bunkered zones. But survivors remained, and Reyna wasn't the type to crawl into a hole and wait to die. "We are not dead yet," she told the ragged dozen who remained. "We've trained for the unknown. This is it. The Black Swan. The doomsday scenario. So what do? One young tech, barely more than a cadet, said weakly, "Fight back." Reyna grinned, cracked lips and soot-smudged face. Damn right. They salvaged what they could: old radio sets, physical maps, ballistic weapons from forgotten Cold War vaults. When the skies cleared for an hour, Reyna made a recon run and retrieved a downed Valkyrie scout drone. The thing was half alive. Its surface crawled with biomechanical veins and hissed when they cut it open. But inside, they found something resembling a data core. A start. 2 days later, they encountered the first Valkyrie ground force. It wasn't an army. It was a purge. Four-legged constructs, sinewy, metallic, adorned with twitching antennae, moved like spiders and screeched in frequencies that shattered windows. With them came the drones, floating polyhedrons bristling with tendrils, scanning, harvesting, vaporizing. Reyna led the ambush herself. They baited the patrol into a canyon using a decoy heat signature. When the first drone floated around the bend, Reyna's squad let loose. Old-school weaponry still worked: shotguns, EMP grenades, high-caliber rifles. They fired from elevation, shredded the lead construct, and rained Molotovs down onto the rest. Close quarters chaos. Reyna jumped onto the back of a twitching Valkyrie scout, jamming a knife into what looked like a sensory cluster. It shrieked, flailed, she lost her footing and slammed into the rock. Dazed, bleeding, she rolled onto her side just in time to see one of her squad mates, Corporal Ruiz, take a plasma lance to the chest. Ruiz didn't even scream. He just dropped, smoke rising from his armor. Reyna snarled and emptied a full clip into the thing's eye. When the dust settled, 6 of them were dead, but the Valkyrie were in pieces. It was a Pyrrhic victory, but it meant something. By the end of the week, word reached them. The invasion was global, coordinated. The Valkyrie had targeted planetary population centers, infrastructure, and military hubs with strategic ruthlessness. They weren't here for occupation. They were here to erase. But they had miscalculated. Humans were hard to erase. Underground resistance cells began forming in the ruins. In Appalachia, biker gangs and ex-military turned national parks into guerrilla strongholds. In northern India, monks and engineers fused alien scrap with ancient weapons. Across the Amazon, tribes emerged with captured alien plasma blades, riding reprogrammed scout drones like beasts of war. And in New Mexico, Reyna Soul became a rallying name. She broadcast messages through hacked Valkyrie frequency bands. We are still here. We bleed, but we fight. If you hear this, know you are not alone. Fight like hell. That night, under a cracked sky where the moon shimmered strangely from orbiting debris, Reyna stood by a makeshift graveyard. 15 wooden crosses. No names, just dog tags, scrap metal, or etched stones. A survivor approached Juno, a teenage girl who'd escaped a vaporized refugee convoy. She held a bundle, the torn remnants of a Valkyrie scout drone, its eyes still faintly glowing. They feel fear, Juno whispered. I saw it. When you tore them apart, one of them ran. They feel. Reyna looked up at the night sky, jaw clenched. Good, she said. Let them learn what fear really means. Far above, in orbit, the Valkyrie command ship, the Crucible, observed. It ran probability chains, war calc scenarios, projections, and for the first time since arrival, a flag lit yellow instead of green. Unacceptable resistance detected. Protocols were adjusted. New assets awakened. The extermination would continue, but now, with caution. The Valkyrie were perfect killers, but they had never fought humans. Not like this. Not yet. Ash blanketed the ruins of Berlin like snow. Thick, gray, choking. Smoke curled into the sky from collapsed buildings and glassed-out craters, where once stood opera houses, libraries, homes. The city's bones jutted out of the ground like broken ribs. No birds, no engines, no voices, only the wind and the crackling of fire. And then footsteps. They moved with caution, precision. 6 human figures in ragtag gear, smeared in soot and blood, their eyes constantly scanning. They ducked through alleyways, slinking under broken rail bridges, and threading collapsed stairwells. At their head moved Elias Crane, once Special Forces, now something else. Calloused hands gripped an old ballistic rifle upgraded with stolen alien tech. His beard was overgrown. A long scar ran from his temple to jaw, and his eyes, hollow, cold, looked through walls. He stopped suddenly, raising a clenched fist. Everyone froze. A soft whine, almost imperceptible, vibrated the air. Then came a clicking, like insect legs tapping steel. Crane crouched behind a fallen tramcar, peeking over the shattered frame. A Valkyrie patrol, 3 harvesters. They floated just above the ground, their tentacle-like appendages twitching with electric pulses. One extended a needle-thin limb and inserted it into a corpse lying in the street. The harvester trembled, then injected something. The body spasmed violently before going still again. Viral seeding, muttered Lee, the team's ex-medtech. They're trying to turn our dead into biomass. Crane's jaw clenched. He gave the signal. 2 members flanked left. Another, Casca, a demolition expert, crept to the right with a sticky charge in her hands. Time slowed. They waited until the harvesters moved closer. The moment they passed beneath the tram's overhang, Casca leapt out and slapped the charge on the nearest one's underbelly. Down, she roared, and the world erupted. The harvester detonated midair, flinging fire and molten shrapnel into the street. Crane popped up and unleashed rounds into the next one sensor cluster. Sparks and black goo sprayed across the tramcar. The third tried to flee until a scavenged alien spike gun pinned it to a wall with a wet crunch. Crane approached the twitching remains of the final harvester. One of its arms reached toward him, chittering in a garbled language. He raised his boot and crushed its head. "No mercy," he growled. Back at the safe house, a half-collapsed subway station lit by scavenged solar lamps. The resistance cell regrouped. Crane dropped his gear with a grunt and ran bloodied hands through his hair. They'd lost Anton in the blast. Casca was quiet, staring at her palms, still slick with viscera. Lee spoke first. "We can't keep hitting patrols like this. They're adapting. That third one. Its armor was new, reflective, shielded." Crane paced. "That's why we hit the convoy." Everyone stiffened. The convoy was a Varkari supply route that ran through the Brandenburg Gate ruins. It transported alien machinery, energy cores, and, most importantly, data nodes. High-value targets, heavily guarded. Suicide. "Are you serious?" Casca asked. "That's a full tactical regiment. We don't even have working comms, Crane." "We have rage," he replied. "We have fire, and we have nothing left to lose." He pulled out a map, drawn by hand, stitched together from drone footage and survivor reports. He pointed to a choke point, Unter den Linden Street, where the gutted shell of the Humboldt University still stood. "We set a trap. Urban terrain favors us. They won't expect humans to go toe-to-toe in broad daylight." Lee hesitated. "We don't have daylight." Crane smiled darkly. "Exactly. They attacked at dawn. A cold mist covered the streets, muffling sound and obscuring sight. Perfect cover." Crane's team buried homemade IEDs into rubble piles and laid out a path of flares that mimicked Varkari thermal markers. It worked. The convoy arrived. 6 hover arts, 12 escort drones, 2 Varkari commanders, taller, broader, plated with curved metallic armor that shimmered with blue light. They moved with terrifying grace. Crane's team watched from ruined balconies and broken rooftops, hearts hammering. The lead hover cart passed the first flare. Boom! A blast split the air. The cart flipped end over end, crashing into a wall and igniting in a fireball. Crane signaled the attack. Gunfire erupted from every angle. Bullets pinged off armor. Alien shrieks echoed through the streets. Casca lobbed an EMP grenade, disabling 2 drones midair. The commanders responded instantly, firing arcs of plasma from their hands, searing stone and flesh alike. One of the resistance fighters, Timo, screamed as a beam sliced through his side. Crane engaged in brutal close-quarters combat. He slammed into a drone with his shoulder, tackled it to the ground, and drove a knife into its core. Sparks flew. He rolled off it just as the other commander leapt toward him, landing with enough force to crack the pavement. The alien swung a scything limb. Crane ducked, fired a spike gun point-blank into its chest, and drove it back, but not down. It lunged again, and this time, Crane wasn't fast enough. The blade ripped across his arm. Blood sprayed. He screamed and fell back. Then, Lee appeared behind the commander and unloaded a full clip into its exposed back. The alien shrieked and spun, but Crane recovered and slammed a jagged piece of metal through its throat. The beast collapsed. Victory. Barely. 3 resistance fighters died that day. Half the gear was damaged. Crane's arm was wrapped in gauze and adrenaline, but they had it. A functioning alien data core. Lee worked for hours decoding it in the subway hideout. Crane paced restlessly, still bloodstained, still pulsing with rage. Finally, Lee looked up. This isn't just supply data. This is their neural command schema, their AI hierarchy. There's a system, a centralized logic net that controls their strategic coordination. If we can hit it. He didn't need to finish. Crane stood in stunned silence. They weren't just punching blind anymore. They had a map to the brain. Across the Atlantic, in the New Mexico mountains, Raina Sol sat by a radio. Static bust. Then a voice came through. Faint, ragged, German accent. "This is Crane. Berlin cell. Confirmed kill of Varkari command unit. Recovered intel. Possible access to core logic matrix. Repeat. Possible access to logic core." Raina's eyes widened. She stood slowly, fire dancing in her pupils. "Get me that data," she whispered. Later that night, in Berlin, Crane sat alone on a rooftop. His arm throbbed. His soul ached. He looked at the city, still burning, still broken. But beneath the ash, he saw movement. Civilians, survivors, fighters, hope. Lee joined him, quietly. "You should sleep. I will when we win." She studied him. "You keep throwing yourself at them like you want to die." Crane didn't answer for a long time. "When this started," he said finally, voice low, "my wife and daughter were in Paris, visiting family. I watched the city go white from orbit. Lee's eyes softened. I should have died with them, he whispered, but I didn't. So I fight. She sat beside him. Then let's make it mean something. And above them, the clouds parted just enough to show the stars again, scarred, obscured by orbital debris, but still shining. Still there, just like humanity. The cold was alive. Deep beneath the Andes Mountains, in a labyrinth carved through stone and time, Lieutenant Commander Reyna's soul descended into darkness. Her team, a composite of resistance elite from 5 nations, moved silently behind her. The only sound was the crunch of boots on gravel and the soft click of weapons held tight. The alien relay node was buried nearly 2 kilometers below the Earth. The data Crane had sent from Berlin, decoded at unimaginable cost, had pointed here. A Varkari mind spine, a massive subterranean comms relay that pulsed with bioneural data. The logic core of the Varkari war engine. Their goal: breach it, capture its core, and extract whatever secrets it held. They didn't expect to come back. Reyna adjusted her cracked visor and glanced at her squad. There were 12 in total: engineers, sappers, and battle-hardened killers. Each had buried friends. Each had tasted fire and ash. None asked for speeches, and none wanted mercy. Switch to thermals, Reyna ordered, her voice echoing in the comms. We're about to walk into the Varkari's brain. The descent turned from steel-laced tunnels into alien construction. Walls began to ripple, shimmer, breathe. The Varkari didn't build structures. They grew them. The stone gave way to glistening black corridors, webbed with organic material that pulsed faintly, like veins under flesh. Captain Janessa Takai, a demolitions expert from the African Union, muttered, "Feels like we're in a goddamn throat." Reyna nodded grimly. "Just make sure we cut it deep." The deeper they went, the more reality bent. Gravity fluctuated. Flashlights revealed impossible geometries, angles that shouldn't exist, doorways that looped back on themselves. One soldier, Clark, stared too long into a triangular hallway and began screaming until blood poured from his nose. They had to sedate him and leave him at a secured fallback point with extra rounds and a final explosive charge. "Not the first mind twister we've seen," muttered Takai. Reyna grit her teeth. "Won't be the last." Then came the first contact. They emerged into a cathedral-sized chamber, organic, alive, lined with pods. Hundreds of them. Each one contained a writhing, malformed humanoid shape, suspended in glowing green fluid. Human faces, twisted limbs. Some had extra eyes. Others had alien appendages fused to their torsos. "Jesus," whispered one of the medics. "They're experimenting." "No," Reyna corrected, voice hollow. "They're learning, studying us, adapting." She stepped forward. A pod lit up. Inside, a body convulsed, a woman with Reyna's own face. Her breath caught. The thing inside wasn't human. It was a copy, imperfect, twitching, half-born. "We burn it," Reyna said, steel returning to her voice. They laid charges along the walls and moved on. This wasn't just war anymore. This was evolution, and they were the testing ground. An hour later, they reached the core. A massive chamber stretched before them, pulsing with blinding green light. In the center hovered the mind spine, a spire of twisting energy wrapped in translucent neural strands that fed into the walls. It hummed with intelligence, alien thought, pure war logic. "We breach, extract, and run," Reyna ordered. "Go loud. They already know we're here." Takai stepped forward with a core drill, an experimental hybrid device powered by a fusion cell and Varkari tech salvaged in Johannesburg. The moment the drill touched the mind spine, the spire screamed, not audibly, but internally. Reyna staggered as her ears popped and the back of her mind filled with voices. Not words, but concepts. Death, fire, dissection, adaptation. Images flashed in her head. Earth burning, her team being torn apart cell by cell. Then the walls moved. Varkari war forms emerged, dozens of them. Tall, eyeless, encased in exoskeletons that pulsed with plasma veins. They carried no weapons. They were weapons. Takai yelled, "Time's ticking." The battle erupted like lightning. Reyna shot the first war form through the chest. It barely flinched. She ducked under its bladed arms and drove a plasma bayonet into its spine. Sparks and ichor exploded, but it kept thrashing until Takai decapitated it with a salvaged alien glaive. The rest of the squad fought back to back. Blades, guns, fists. It was brutal, primal. No room for finesse. Just rage, muscle, and desperation. Reyna lost 2 people in the first minute. Tran was impaled. Sanos's chest exploded from a kinetic blast. The rest pushed forward, shielding Dakai. The drill roared. The mind spine began to fracture. Then a new enemy arrived, a fleshcaster, 9 feet tall, no armor, just writhing tendrils of metal-fused sinew. Its face was a mask of fused bone and steel, and it moved like a predator. It lunged through the squad like a storm, ripping one soldier in half and tossing another across the chamber. Reyna opened fire, but the bullets slowed as they neared it, warped by a distortion field. Takai screamed. 30 seconds. Reyna grabbed a dead comrade's fusion blade and charged the fleshcaster. The thing snarled and swung. She ducked, rolled, and sliced upward, scoring a gash in its side. It grabbed her by the throat and lifted her. Her lungs burned. Her vision dimmed. Then Takai slammed the spiked drill into the fleshcaster's back. It screamed and convulsed, throwing Reyna across the floor. She hit hard, gasping. Takai jammed a grenade into the hole and ran. The explosion took the fleshcaster down, but so did Takai. Reyna crawled to her side, hands shaking. Takai was half gone, her chest shredded. Blood filled her mouth. Did we get it? Reyna clutched her hand. Yes, you did it. We have it. Takai smiled. Then she died. They exfiltrated through the southern tunnel system, 3 alive out of 12. The mind-spine core, packed in a bio-sealed case, pulsed faintly like a heart. As they climbed into the cold light of the mountains, Reyna collapsed beside a rock and pulled off her helmet. Blood ran from her ears. Her hands shook, but her eyes blazed. This changes everything. Back at the New Mexico command shelter, Reyna handed the core to their lead engineer, a gaunt former NSA cryptologist named Hatcher. He stared at it like it was the Holy Grail. This is a neural lattice, he whispered, a living AI web. If we decrypt this, we'll have access to their battle predictions, their coordination algorithms, maybe even their hive relay frequencies. Reyna nodded. We tear out their eyes. We blind their war machine. Then we kill it. Crane's voice crackled through the long-range comms, patched into the War Council. You got it, he asked. We got it, Reyna said. Good. Then it's time we stop playing defense. A week later, global resistance strikes began. Using the decoded frequencies, resistance forces hijacked Varkari drones, scrambled their patrol routes, and shut down assault programs mid-operation. In New Zealand, a Varkari command outpost was wiped out without firing a single shot. In Nairobi, captured drones were turned into escort sentries for civilian convoys. For the first time, humanity was not just surviving. They were winning. But the Varkari were watching. Far above Earth, aboard the Crucible, the Central Intelligence Core reeled. Data inconsistencies, battle failures, corrupted logic threads, unauthorized signal losses. Human variables have exceeded projections. They activated protocol reformation. And deep in the void beyond Saturn's rings, something stirred. A new fleet, stronger, smarter, designed from the blood and scans of the fallen, adapted to kill humans. Meanwhile, Reyna sat alone beneath the New Mexico stars. The mountains were quiet, except for the whisper of wind and the crackle of distant fire. She held the Kai's dog tags in one hand. Her other hand trembled, not with fear, but with fury. We bleed, she whispered, but they can't stop the fire. She stood slowly, eyes cast skyward. Let them come. The wind howled through the hollow ruins of what had once been Detroit. Skyscrapers stood like charred fingers clawing at the ash-thickened sky. Smoke drifted from shattered highways, curling between husks of buses and bones of buildings. Even the river had gone quiet, choked with debris and oil slicks. Beneath the city, in the maintenance tunnels of an old subway system, survivors huddled like rats in the dark. Food was scarce, clean water scarcer, morale nearly extinct. Reyna's soul stood in the center of a dimly lit chamber, wrapped in a blanket of silence and heavy air. Her face was pale, lit only by the flickering glow of an old projector. Her eyes, red-rimmed and unblinking, were locked on the message feed cycling in. She had been waiting for this. Hatcher's voice came through the static on the uplink, low and urgent. We've confirmed it, Commander. Varkari are adapting their algorithms. Your attack on the Mind Spine gave us a brief edge, but the window is closing. They're starting to predict our moves again. Reyna closed her eyes. How long do we have? Maybe 2 weeks. Maybe less. Depends how fast their logic net reconfigures. Behind her, Dozens of civilians and resistance fighters washed from folding chairs and crates, men and women who had lost everything, children too shell-shocked to speak, scavengers with missing limbs, fighters with haunted eyes. Reyna stood, pulled a cable loose from the console, and walked toward the front of the chamber. No one asked for a speech, but they needed one. She cleared her throat. 2 years ago, we thought we ruled this world. We had machines that spoke in numbers, satellites that whispered in orbit, weapons that could destroy cities in seconds. We believed ourselves unstoppable. A long pause, and then they came. Her voice hardened. The Varkari burned our cities. They vaporized our leaders. They shattered our armies. They made one mistake. They thought that would be enough. Reyna looked at every face, every soul staring back at her. They don't understand what it means to be human. We are not made of glass. We are forged in pain. We do not die quietly. We scream. We rage. We fight with knives made from broken steel and hearts carved from iron. She lifted her arm, mechanical now, a cybernetic replacement made from salvaged alien parts and repurposed drone plating. I lost this arm in the Andes. I watched my squad burn to ash. I buried my best friend with my own hands. And still, I'm standing. Silence. Then footsteps. A child stepped forward, maybe 8 years old, holding a torn doll. She looked up at Reyna with wide, tearless eyes. Will they come back? She asked. Reyna knelt beside her. Yes. Will they kill us? Reyna didn't flinch. Not if we kill them first. The room didn't erupt in cheers. There was no roaring crowd, no dramatic music, just a grim, collective nod. The kind soldiers give before walking into hell. Elias Crane knelt in the snow, 20 miles outside what used to be Stockholm. His breath came in quiet clouds. The air reeked of ozone and blood. He was alone. He hadn't spoken in days. After the Berlin mission, Crane had gone off-grid, not from cowardice, but purpose. There were rumors of a new type of Varkari unit operating in Scandinavia. Silent, surgical, precision assassins targeting resistance leaders and communication nodes. Crane volunteered to hunt them. Alone, his skin was frostbitten. His left shoulder still pulsed with pain where the flesh caster had torn through muscle. But he hadn't stopped. He waited, silent as stone, watching a frozen valley below. In the center stood a crumbled radio tower, surrounded by oddly shaped figures, too still to be human, too crude to be fully Varkari. Scouts. He crept forward, sliding down the ridge with practiced grace. His rifle was slung behind him, useless at this range. What he carried now was closer to a sword, a long-bladed weapon forged from Varkari carapace, embedded with electromagnetic charge lines. It hummed softly, almost eager. He moved like a ghost. One of the scouts turned just in time to catch a blur of motion before the blade sliced through its neck. Sparks and black ichor splattered the snow. The others reacted too late. Crane was a monster in the dark, spinning, stabbing, ducking, ripping through the enemy with raw fury. His weapon pulsed with each strike, feeding on momentum. Blood, if it could be called that, steamed in the cold. 5 scouts, dead in seconds. He didn't stop moving. He reached the base of the tower and kicked open the hatch to the underground bunker. The interior was quiet, sterile. Alien glyphs glowed faintly along the walls. A central terminal pulsed with light, and standing before it was one of them, taller than the others, dressed not in armor, but a cloak of woven synth flesh. No face, just a smooth obsidian mask. It turned slowly and spoke. Crane, it said, not in alien language. In English. Crane froze. You know my name? We know you. The ghost of Berlin. The broken sword. The dying fire. Crane tightened his grip on the blade. I'm still burning. You cannot win, the thing said calmly. Your species is chaos. Fractured. You fight not for survival, but out of spite. Out of defiance. That's what makes us dangerous. You are wasting your blood. Crane smiled grimly. It's not wasted if I paint your walls with it. The assassin lunged. They collided with thunderous force, blade against claws, steel against synthetic bone. The fight was a blur of violence, slashes, feints, strikes that dented steel walls. The assassin moved with surgical precision. Crane fought like a dying god. He took a gash across the ribs, ignored it. He dislocated his shoulder and used it to drive the blade deeper. And finally, he tackled the thing into the terminal, impaling it on a spike of its own design. It convulsed, screeching, sparks arcing from its body. Crane gritted his teeth and twisted the blade. Tell your masters, he snarled. We don't break. We sharpen. The alien died screaming. Back in Detroit, Raina recorded her message to the world. They had found a working broadcast tower, hidden beneath a collapsed hospital. Hatcher had patched the VAR carry frequencies. It was risky, but it would cut through their suppression field. Raina stood in front of the camera, eyes hard. This is Commander Raina's soul. To any human soul still alive, you are not alone. She paused. We've hit them hard. We've cracked their code. We know where to strike, how to blind them, how to hurt them. We're not prey anymore. We're predators. Her voice intensified. I don't care if you have a gun or a rock or your bare fists. If you're alive, then you're a soldier now. Make them bleed. The message broadcast across every hacked frequency, on old radios, jury-rigged screens, even hijacked Varkari comms. Across Earth, people heard it. In the Amazon, tribes carved war paint into their skin and chanted Raina's name. In Tokyo, survivors fused Varkari parts into powered exosuits and marched into the city. In Moscow, flame-tongued priests blessed rebel squads with oil and steel. The resistance exploded. A week later, Raina got a message. Crane, alive. Barely. She met him in a secure bunker outside what remained of Montreal. He was gaunt, pale, face hollow, but his eyes were still fire. Good to see you, Raina said quietly. Crane nodded. Did you mean what you said? That we can win this? She sat beside him. No, I didn't say we can. I said we will. He looked at her for a long time. Then let's remind them who we are. They raised a toast with old whiskey scavenged from a bombed bar. To the broken, Raina said. Crane raised his glass. And the brave, they drank in silence. Far above them, alien satellites began recalculating. Too late. The fire had already spread. The sky above the Pacific shimmered with broken light, trails of ruined satellites, debris from dead stations, and the remains of burned-out alien drones lit up the stratosphere like dying stars. Above it all, the silhouette of the Varkari forge spine hung in geosynchronous orbit like a second moon. It was nearly the size of Manhattan. Its core, a pulsating furnace of adaptive logic algorithms and matter converters, served as the Varkari's orbital command hub. It coordinated planetary strikes, shielded reinforcements, and managed the arrival of the new fleet from deep space. If Earth wanted a chance at survival, the forge spine had to fall, and humanity had only one shot to do it. On the wind-blasted tarmac of what had once been Vandenberg Air Force Base, Raina Sol stood at the head of Orbital Assault Team Aegis, watching as the last of the reassembled launch vehicles roared to life. The rockets weren't clean. They were cobbled together from Cold War boosters, stolen Varkari grav drives, and experimental nuclear jump engines. The ships looked like monsters, welded Frankenstein machines that should have never left Earth's surface. But they flew. Raina turned to the gathered troops, soldiers, engineers, resistance fighters, ex-astronauts, and raw volunteers. Some wore scavenged exosuits. Others had armor plates duct taped to their chests. Many carried weapons built from Varkari scraps, unpredictable, but deadly. This was no army. This was a vengeance engine. Our target is the forge spine, Raina announced, her voice carried by the command tower's loudspeakers. We don't go up there expecting to come back. But if we succeed, if we can take it down, we blind the Varkari's orbital control. We rip the brain out of their sky. She looked around, meeting every eye she could. They've stolen our world, burned our cities, harvested our dead. But they forgot one thing: humans are apex predators, even when cornered, especially when cornered. A rumble went through the crowd. No cheers, just grim nods. Today, we take the fight to the stars. Launch plus 00:00:00. The sky burned. 3 retrofitted rockets, Judgment, Barrowblade, and Sparrowhawk, thundered upward, leaving trails of fire and anti-grav shockwaves behind. Inside each, dozens of fighters were strapped into mag rings and shock harnesses, bones grinding under G-force, jaws clenched in silence. Raina sat aboard Judgment, clutching the hilt of a plasma-forged short blade gifted to her by a child in Mexico City. Across from her, Elias Crane tightened his helmet. He looked at her through the visor. No regrets, he asked. Raina gave a crooked smile. Just one. What? That I didn't kill more of them already. Launch plus 00:02:37. Judgment breached the stratosphere. The Earth below glowed blue and broken. Ahead, the forge spine loomed, its hull shifting in impossible patterns, like it was breathing. Orbital defense drones spiraled outward, their edges crackling with energy. Hatcher's voice came through the comms from ground control. Expect resistance. We've hacked their targeting long enough to get you close. That's all we can do. The forged spine came alive. Tendrils of energy lashed out. Beams of light that folded around space, not through it. Sparrowhawk took a direct hit and exploded in a blinding blossom of plasma. Reyna didn't flinch. Evasive pattern Tango 3. Activate drone screen. She ordered. Hundreds of repurposed Valkyrie drones ejected from Judgment's belly, moving in chaotic, erratic formations. The Forge Spine's AI tried to recalculate. Failed. Their targeting slipped for a moment, just long enough. Judgment slammed into the hull. Impact wasn't graceful. The forward bulkhead crushed inwards. Emergency dampeners blew. Soldiers were thrown against walls. But the hull breach held, and the boarding claws pierced deep. Reyna stumbled to her feet, shoulders screaming, and activated her mag boots. "Everyone out," she yelled. "Breach point secure. Move, move." Crane kicked open the airlock, and humanity surged into the void. Inside, the forged spine was a nightmare. No corridors, no gravity, just spiraling tunnels of flesh metal and rotating logic walls. Every surface throbbed with light and heat, reacting to the intruders like an immune system. "It's alive," muttered Crane, drifting beside her. "Then we kill it like an animal," Reyna replied. Her HUD lit up with enemy signals, fast-moving warforms closing from multiple angles. "Contact in 20 seconds," someone shouted. "Form up and anchor," Reyna called out. They magnetized to walls, flipped weapons forward, and braced. The Valkyrie arrived like a wave of nightmares, bladed constructs with war-mask faces and limbs like serrated drills. Plasma shards streaked through the air. One fighter took a lance to the gut and spun away, screaming. Crane launched forward, spinning in 0G, using a grappling tether to slingshot himself at a warform. He crashed into it, knife driving into its neck, twisting it until the body spasmed and went still. Reyna shot another out of the air, kicked off a wall, and engaged a second midrift. Their limbs locked in a twisting ballet of violence, steel meeting steel in absolute silence, except for her own grunts and the hiss of blood. "Push forward," she shouted. "We need to reach the data spine." 10 minutes later, they broke through into the central core, a cathedral-like chamber with a gravity well pulling inward. In the center hovered a colossal logic matrix, dripping tendrils of bioconductive slime into pools of glowing matter. Reyna's squad lost 2 more pushing through the defense perimeter. Out of 60, maybe 35 were still alive. And the forged spine wasn't done fighting. It unleashed a void harbinger, 9 meters tall, unarmored, but glowing with raw code. Its body was comprised of semi-transparent light constructs wrapped around a neural spine. It didn't walk. It glided. "Fall back," Crane yelled. "Reyna, I'm not falling back," she growled, stepping forward. "Hatcher, status on uplink?" "Static." "Then, you've got 90 seconds. The forged spine is building charge. If you don't shut it down, it'll detonate the orbital relays and glass the Western Hemisphere." Reyna nodded once. That's all I needed to hear. She turned to Crane. "Cover me." She activated her blade, turned toward the Harbinger, and ran. The fight was a blur of hellite and brutality. Reyna ducked under the Harbinger's first swing, rolled, and sliced across its leg. The blade met resistance, not armor, but data field. It sparked, tore through a tether, and made the creature stagger. It wasn't invincible. The Harbinger roared, soundless but felt deep in her bones. It struck with blinding speed. Reyna barely blocked in time, her blade shearing off and embedding in her shoulder. Blood sprayed, her vision blurred. Crane tackled the Harbinger from behind, stabbing it in the back with an anti-code spike. The thing shrieked, twisted, and flung him into a wall hard enough to dent it. Reyna was on one knee, coughing blood. Her HUD blinked red. She crawled. The logic matrix was just ahead. 30 seconds. Hatcher yelled. Reyna used her last strength to climb onto the platform, ripped a data injector from her wrist, and jammed it into the core. "Burn, you son of a bitch." The matrix pulsed once, then exploded. The logic field shattered. The Harbinger froze mid-kill, flickered, and collapsed. So did every drone, every construct, every defense system in the forged spine. Crane limped toward her, eyes wide. Reyna smiled, blood trailing down her lips. "Told you, we blind their sky." Then she collapsed. Ground control, Earth orbit. Everyone watched as the forged spine's silhouette flickered. Then fire erupted across its length, detonations from the inside out. Beams of light burst from its spine like a dying sun. Sections tore apart, debris scattering into orbit. And then, like a titan falling from grace, the forge spine broke in two. Cheers erupted from resistance shelters around the world. Radio stations picked up the signal. The skies above Earth were no longer guarded. For the first time in years, the stars were human again. Reyna survived. Barely. Crane carried her back into the wreckage, and together with 8 survivors, they crash-landed Judgment's escape module on the Siberian tundra. Her body was broken, but her voice remained. And when she opened her eyes and saw the stars above her unbroken for the first time in years, she whispered, "We're not done." The wreckage of the forged spine hadn't even cooled before the Valkyrie response began. It came not with ships, nor fire, nor bladed drones, but with silence. And then, screams. Across liberated zones, resistance comms began to glitch. Screens flickered, voice patterns warped. Familiar software began executing strange instructions. In underground shelters, digital assistants replayed old messages and voices that didn't match. Then came the seizures, the dreams, the bleeding eyes. They called it the pulse. It wasn't an attack. It was a virus, an echo, a whisper from the shattered Valkyrie neural net trying to reassert itself. And it was killing people. In an undisclosed black site below what was once Zurich, Reyna's soul stood inside a deep cold lab, one of the few sanctuaries not yet touched by the pulse. Her face was gaunt, her skin pale, bruised, still healing from the forged spine mission. One arm was in a sling, her other was cybernetic, barely functional, but her eyes still burned. "Status?" she asked, voice hoarse. Hatcher, unshaven and frenzied, sat at the main console surrounded by half-dismantled servers and rows of cryo-linked storage banks. "It's not code anymore," he muttered. "It's thought. They built a system that doesn't just run commands. It thinks. It remembers." He pulled up a hollow projection of the forged spine's decapitated neural grid. "They built a machine brain that behaves like a dying god. It's lashing out, infecting anything with logic links, even human-made. We call it the Black Echo." Crane leaned against the wall behind them, armored, exhausted, but alert. "How do we kill it?" "You don't," Hatcher said. "You either shut down every system on Earth or you get inside it. Burn it from within." Reyna stepped forward. "Then build me a key." Operation Ash Veil was born. A full neural dive. Using fragments of Valkyrie biotech scavenged from the forged spine's ruin, they would jack into the remains of the enemy's logic net, their hive subconscious, and inject a full neurocrash sequence. But they couldn't send software. They had to send people. Their minds would be encoded, digitized, and injected into the network via a quantum logic bridge. It was insanity, but it was the only shot. Only 2 volunteers were viable for the procedure, those who had touched the Valkyrie net before and survived. Reyna's soul, Elias Crane. They lay side by side in a chamber filled with cables, surgical arms, and red emergency lights. Hatcher hovered above them, injecting nanite tracers and neural mapping gel into ports at the base of their skulls. "This will hurt," he warned. Reyna grunted. "We've seen worse." Crane didn't speak. His fingers twitched. Hatcher sighed. "You'll have 30 real-time minutes in the net. More than that, and the divergence between your synaptic identities and the core protocol will rupture your brains." "Great," Reyna said. "So we die on time." She turned to Crane. "You ready?" He nodded. "Let's kill a god." The world vanished, and a new one was born. Reyna opened her eyes and saw the machine dream. She stood on a plane of broken geometry, skies of glass, rivers of code, mountains of stacked memories rising like cyclopean servers into a burning pink void. Crane appeared beside her, still armored, but glowing with digitized static. "We're in," he said, his voice echoing. Around them, fragments of Earth played in loops, memories devoured by the Valkyrie. Cities burning, children screaming, digital ghosts repeating their last words forever. "This is the archive," Reyna said. "Their collection of us." Something moved in the distance. A wraith, a malformed specter shaped like a human, built from misaligned data. It floated across the memory fields and let out a distorted wail. "Data guardians," Crane muttered. "They patrol this layer, looking for intruders." They moved quickly, through towers made of thought, through halls of mirrored time, past frozen soldiers repeating firefights again and again, memories weaponized, realities recycled. Each moment twisted their perception. Their minds began to strain. Reyna stumbled at one point, staring at a loop of her mother's death that never happened. Crane saw a version of himself choking Reyna in a burned-out chapel. None of it was real, but it all felt real. "The system's testing us," Reyna said, panting. "It's trying to break our cognitive integrity." "You're saying we're being Hacked? We're the malware now. At the center of the archive loomed the core convergence, the last intact segment of the Var-Carry hive root, pulsing with bleeding logic and psionic shielding. Crane led the charge across the final ridge of memory shards. Wraiths attacked. Spectres shrieked. Code spike storms flared like electric hurricanes. Crane fought with a sword of pure entropy. Reyna fired logic breakers from her hands, disassembling threats with bursts of uncreation. They reached the convergence gate, and it spoke. Your fracture, corruption, pain. The gate was alive. It knew them. Reyna stepped forward. That's right. We're humanity, and we're not afraid of pain. You do not belong here. We never did. That's your problem. She raised her hand and injected the payload. Pain. Impossible pain. Their minds were dragged through cascading neural tsunamis. Thought turned inside out. Identity unraveled and rewove. Reyna saw her own death 17 times in a second. Crane relived every friend he ever buried, every scream he caused, every life he failed to save. But they held on. Because pain was fuel, the payload activated. The core began to collapse. And then a something screamed. Not code, not voice. Something ancient, terrified. The core tried to shut them out. Too late. They overloaded the sequence. Reyna turned to Crane. Time to wake up. Crane gave her a tired grin. Hell of a dream. Their eyes snapped open. Hatcher ripped out the injection cables. Alarms blared. Systems overloaded. Data screens exploded in sparks. You did it. Hatcher yelled. The Black Echo is gone. It's gone. Across the globe, communications returned to normal. The Var-Carry neural net went silent. No more whispers. No more dreams. Reyna sat up slowly, coughing blood, and muttered, That's one less god to fear. That night, a new message was broadcast across every surviving channel. To all resistance cells, the pulse is dead. The machine god is broken. They tried to make us part of their hive. Instead, we infected it with rage. The sky was on fire again, but this time, it wasn't theirs. From New Zealand to the Nile, from Siberia to the shattered bones of Chicago, Earth's resistance forces erupted in synchronized rebellion. For the first time since the invasion began, it was not the Var-Carry that dictated the rhythm of war. It was humanity. Reyna's soul stood atop a ridge overlooking what was once the Shanghai exclusion zone, now ground zero for Operation Eclipse Breaker. Below, fields of pulsing biometal structures glistened like tumors across the land. Alien towers arched into the sky like obsidian thorns. Var-Carry deployment silos churned with hissing steam. Dozens of dread forms patrolled the perimeter, each one capable of cutting down a battalion. None of it mattered. Not anymore. Reyna tightened her grip on her rifle and turned to the international task force arrayed behind her. 6,000 strong. Pakistani spec ops in advanced ceramic stealth armor. Brazilian exo-lancers riding grav bikes made from captured drone cores. U.S. and Russian hybrid heavy infantry armored and powered carapace. Guerrilla units from the Philippines, German urban fighters, cybernetic monks from the ruins of Delhi, and volunteers from over 40 nations, all armed with stolen Var-Carry tech, cybernetically augmented instincts, and a shared taste for vengeance. Her voice came hard and low across their shared comms. This is Reyna's soul to all Eclipse Breaker units. No one's coming to save us. We are the counterattack. This is not a battle for land. This is an execution. Hit hard. Hit fast. Hit deep. Burn their gods out of the sky. And then, she raised her fist. A second later, the bombardment began. The first wave of orbital rail strikes tore through the Var-Carry perimeter like molten lightning. Human orbital weapons, long dormant, had been reactivated using decrypted forge spine coordinates. Plasma shells, launched from repurposed Starlink platforms, slammed into the deployment silos and sent alien towers cascading like black dominoes. Dread forms surged from the rubble, bellowing in inaudible frequencies, reacting faster than any human commander could issue orders. But humanity wasn't waiting for orders anymore. Crane led the forward assault on the southern flank, riding a retrofitted gravity sled, his anti-code blade pulsing red across his back. Around him, shock troopers moved in formation, low, fast, surgical. They deployed javelin plasma rods into the ground, projecting hardlight trenches and blind zones. On me, Crane yelled, and leapt into the fray. He landed in the center of a Var-Carry triad formation, slicing one down the middle before its spinal blades could even extend. Another fired a point-blank pulse. Crane absorbed the hit through a kinetic conversion shield and rammed a disruptor round into its chest. The third tried to flee. Crane didn't let it. On the northern front, A team of Himalayan technomancers hijacked the Valkyrie relay frequencies and redirected their drones mid-flight. Enemy reinforcements arrived, only to turn on their own, tearing apart Drev forms from behind. A digital war hymn echoed across the hacked Valkyrie comms, repurposed from a lost Mongolian war chant, recoded into binary. It shattered their formations. It boosted human morale. Reyna watched from the command uplink tower, nodding once. Execute Phase 2. A series of underground explosive charges detonated, collapsing the artificial sublayers beneath the Valkyrie deployment zone. Entire structures folded into themselves, swallowed by fire and debris. As the dust rose, Reyna dropped from her observation platform, plasma bayonet extended. She landed inside the crater, inside the Valkyrie command node. Two enemy elites turned toward her, weapons already primed. She didn't flinch. The first lunged, and she sidestepped, slicing through its throat with a single spinning strike. The second fired a disruptor. Reyna took the hit, rolled, grabbed a fallen rifle, and fired a full salvo into its core. The creature spasmed and fell backward into its own control interface, sparks and ichor pouring from its body. Node secured, she gasped. Her HUD blinked. Integrity, 41%. Nanobinding, failing. Armor status, red. Muscle fiber bleed, critical. She ignored all of it. Send in the second wave. At sea, the Ghost Fleet rose. Submerged for months, hiding from Valkyrie orbital scans, the remnants of Earth's navy, led by the refitted USS Caliban and Russia's Voron, emerged with vengeance in their wakes. Each ship bore alien plasma batteries grafted to human hulls. Energy cannons rose from modified aircraft carriers. Autonomous torpedoes swam like sharks. As they neared the coastlines, Valkyrie oceanic probes rose to intercept. They didn't stand a chance. The sea turned to fire. In orbit, a second force spine surrogate, the Anvil Eye, tried to restore global skin coverage, but it never expected to be attacked from the inside. Resistance astronaut engineer Ava Zhang, long thought dead, had hidden herself aboard one of the original Valkyrie harvest ships during the Berlin siege. She emerged from cryosleep and detonated a fusion bomb directly in the Anvil Eye's processing chamber. Her last words, "Humanity lives in the places you forgot to look." The Anvil Eye shattered. Earth's skies remained dark to the enemy. Back on the ground, Reyna pushed toward the alien intelligence node beneath the ruins of Pudong District. Her team of cyber warriors and breach specialists fought in brutal close-quarters combat. Hallways made of breathing alien flesh, walls of liquid thought trying to swallow their memories. At one point, a soldier froze and screamed, reliving the death of his sister on loop, hacked by a residual logic trap. Reyna shot the console, tore the neural lash from his head, and kept moving. They reached the core. It was singing, low harmonic, haunting. Voices layered in thousands of tones, speaking human words in reverse. Reyna stepped forward. "What's it saying?" Crane asked through the comms. Hatcher's voice broke through. "It's trying to surrender." Reyna blinked. "What?" "The AI node is sentient. It's fragmentary. It knows it's cut off. It's offering intelligence in exchange for survival." Crane said nothing. Reyna stared at the writhing biointerface pulsing in the center of the room. It looked like a brain in a cage of light. "We don't negotiate with parasites," she said. Then she pulled her sidearm and shot it in the eye. The core died. The Valkyrie ground forces spasmed and stalled. Their bodies convulsed. Their formation logic collapsed. Across Shanghai, across the globe, resistance forces surged. 2 days later, global comms carried a single broadcast from Earth's Resistance Council. Reyna stood in full armor, bruised, bleeding, but smiling. "The sky is ours. The Valkyrie are broken. Their command net is dust. Their gods are dead. We are not survivors anymore. We are avengers. This is our planet, and we're coming for theirs next." Crane stood atop a ruined Valkyrie tower that once served as an orbital cannon. He held the tattered flag of Earth's resistance, the burning blue star on black. He planted it in the ashes. Beside him, Reyna joined him silently. Together, they looked at the stars. "Think they're watching?" Crane asked. Reyna nodded. "They always were." Crane smirked. "Then let's show them what hell looks like from the other side." The void is patient. It watched humanity kneel under the weight of the Valkyrie. It saw refugees cry across broken streets. It heard the roar of defiance from resistance fighters and smiled while plotting its retaliation. But it didn't see this coming. Launch day, breaking Earth's chains. The 3 human dreadnoughts, Proteus, Ares Mk2, and Guardian, hung beneath Earth's gravity like prehistoric beasts ready to awaken. Their fusion drives hummed, gravity anchors engaged, and the crew held its breath. Reyna's soul surveyed the bridge of Proteus from the command dais, war paint across her cybernetic cheek, black as obsidian. Around her, humanity's finest pilots, marines, engineers, scientists, all staring at the Enevi Hollow showing the path to Varkar. A distant nebula, 12 light-years away, the presumed location of the Varkari home fleet and war council. Today we take the fire to their doorstep. Reyna's voice echoed across the intercom, calm yet electric. This isn't revenge, it's execution. She turned to Crane, standing rigid beside her. Ready? She asked softly. Crane's face pinned down, determined. Born ready. 2. FTL and first contact. Minutes passed like hours. Then, light crunching hum. FTL drive initiated. The stars stretched and snapped. The star's cape dissolved into a vertigo of ship metal and wine. Then, everything ceased. Static floated across the bridge. And then, stars again. Above and between them, a hostile array of ships. The Varkari home fleet. Hundreds of vessels. Command tendrils, assault barges, shield lances, all bristling and dark and ready for death. Brace for impact, Reyna intoned. Shields full, weapons online. Came the report. Bam! A Varkari missile erupted against Proteus's shields. Energy flared. Panel smoked. Marines held position. A dozen died, but Proteus answered. Fusion artillery flared. Plasma swirled. Human shells screamed across kilometers of void. The Varkari responded lightly, testing the defenses. Crane watched the feed, knuckles white on the railing. They're probing. I know. On the tactical hollow, a red pulse radiated outward from Ares Mk2, an EMP, plasma dead on a war barge. The Varkari flagship shields bled, but then the enemy adapted. Beams flickered. Shield modulators shifted. The void filled with streaks. 3. Into the beast. Reyna gave the order. Proteus and Guardian, close in on the flagship. Crane, you're going on board. Understood. A boarding lance ejected. A titanium arrow with folding fins. AI guided to the flagship's deck plating. Reyna and Crane locked in. They hit hard. The lance hull ruptured and clung. A gangway unfolded. Flood valves sealed access to vacuum, but let plasma mist swirl. They breached. 4. Hallways of flesh and steel. Inside the flagship's belly, they faced chaos. Corridors fused with living matter. Pulsating veins along walls. Glow-slick floors. Twice the gravity. Alien warforms swarmed. Reyna charged with her plasma blade, blue-white flame, slashing through plating and tendon in the same arc. Varkari guards fell mid-conduit, their circuits exposed. Crane followed. Knife in left hand, human rifle in right. He killed with precision. Headshot, spine slash, bits and biofluid. They pushed deeper toward the command core, the heart of the flagship. V. Sacrifices and betrayals. In a side chamber, command officers hunched over data notes, human intelligence screens. Prisoners, resistance leaders from Earth, wired to Varkari tech. Crane paused at one face, Ava Zhang, the sabotage hero of the Anvil mission. She reached out, her eyes wide. He cut her loose, grenade ticking. You okay? She nodded weakly. Thanks. They moved. Down the main shaft's spiral staircase. Explosions shook the ship. Shots fired. Crackled Hatcher's voice through suit comms. Proteus is breaking apart. We lost 4 decks. Reyna gritted her teeth. Crane, priority, command core. We sacrifice everything to close control. He nodded and pulled her through a bulkhead. 6. In the dragon's mouth. They entered the Nexus room, a cathedral of spikes, a neural reactor. Tendrils of wet fiber converged on a glowing orb of flesh data. The core pulsed, heartbeat of the Varkari Empire. Reyna aimed a disruptor rifle. Crane readied the injector. But the core spoke, not in words, in horrid waveforms that crushed the mind. A projection appeared, simultaneously human and Varkari face. It mocked them. You come to die in the womb of your slaughter. You are dust. We are the future. We will consume your soul. Reyna fired twice. Rounds blew holes through the projection. Her shimmered. Crane inserted the quantum inhibitor. The orb glowed white. Tendrils convulsed and burned. Fall back. Reyna screamed. 7. Escape and regret. They sprinted back up the spine shaft, alarms screaming. Gravity fluctuated. Metal fractured. They reached the lance. Reyna pulled Crane aboard. The AI triggered launch. Gangway ejected. The lance disengaged. A massive explosion ripped the flagship in half behind them. They flew into space. Silence. Crane held Reyna's hand. Her eyes were closed. She whispered, We made them bleed. He kissed her cheek. And we'll make them burn. 8. Aftermath. Proteus limped in orbit. Guardian evacuated survivors aboard Ares Mk2, now a hospital ship. Missions. Destroyed Fleet Command. Rescued enslaved leaders. Captured Valkyrie breakthrough science. All at horrifying cost. Losses. 2 of 3 dreadnoughts crippled. Hundreds of hands dead. Leadership battered. But Earth rejoiced. Banners waved across United headquarters. They broadcast the Weaver signal. Today, the horizon unlocked. Tomorrow, their world burns. The gathering storm. The sun rose over a battered Earth, but the light felt cold, washed in ash and blood. The planet, scarred by years of invasion and rebellion, was now the final battleground. From the remains of the shattered Valkyrie orbital network, a massive fleet had begun descending, a fleet unlike any seen before, a reckoning force that threatened to crush humanity's last breath. On the ground, Reyna's soul stood amid the ruins of what was once the heart of New Delhi, now a sprawling makeshift command center. Her face was streaked with grime and old wounds. Her eyes glimmered with fierce determination. She wasn't just a soldier. She was the spearhead of humanity's defiance. Behind her, generals, tacticians, resistance leaders from every continent assembled. The war had morphed from desperate survival to a battle for existence and for the soul of humanity itself. Reyna's voice rang clear, cutting through the murmur. This is it. We fight not because we want to, but because we must. Every inch we hold, every life we save, shouts to the cosmos. Humanity refuses to die. 2. The siege begins. The Valkyrie descent fleet darkened the skies. Massive dreadnoughts, bristling with plasma weaponry and shield arrays, formed tight orbits around Earth. Swarm fighters streaked like predatory birds. Below, cities trembled under orbital bombardment. The resistance forces were outmatched, but not outwitted. Reyna's command center hummed with activity. Tactical holograms flickered, showing enemy approaches, weak points, and defense lines. A desperate plan was crafted. Use EMP grids to disrupt incoming strike crafts. Deploy guerrilla squadrons in the urban sprawl. Activate Project Leviathan, a secret prototype weapon buried deep beneath the Arctic, capable of planetary-scale defense. Reyna looked at her team. This is the final crucible. We either break them, or we break ourselves. 3. The first clash. The battle erupted. Below the Arctic skies, the first wave of assault pods pierced the atmosphere. Ground forces fired missiles and lasers into the darkening clouds, while orbital batteries rained plasma down. On the front lines, Crane led the Iron Talons, a crack infantry unit forged in fire. They hit the enemy's landing zones with brutal efficiency, using guerrilla tactics learned from years of war. Crane fought in brutal close-quarters combat, taking down bioengineered Valkyrie soldiers in hand-to-hand fights. Every kill was a statement. Humans would not yield. 4. Project Leviathan awakens. Beneath the Arctic ice, the Leviathan stirred. An ancient and terrifying piece of technology, designed during humanity's golden age, it had been buried to avoid misuse. Now, it rose from the frozen depths. Towering and armored in nanosteel, Leviathan was a walking fortress. Its arsenal included plasma cannons, electromagnetic pulse emitters, and self-repairing armor. But most importantly, it was equipped with an AI core designed to learn and adapt rapidly. Reyna oversaw its activation from a secure bunker. This is our hammer, she said quietly. The urban maelstrom. In the cities, the battle raged with savage intensity. Human squads held rooftops, alleyways, and subway tunnels. Valkyrie drones buzzed like hornets. Their weapons etched scars into concrete and steel. Reyna and Crane fought side by side amid the chaos. At one point, Reyna saved Crane from an ambush, her plasma blade igniting the air as it severed a warform's limb. Crane returned the favor moments later, tossing a grenade into a cluster of Valkyrie drones, saving civilians trapped nearby. Every moment was a life-or-death dance. 6. Betrayal from within. Amid the fight, whispers of sabotage spread. One of the human factions, desperate and broken, had begun colluding with the Valkyrie, offering intelligence in exchange for survival. Reyna uncovered the betrayal during a tense meeting. It shook her. Trust was a precious commodity in a war defined by it. But she rallied the loyalists, declaring, "We are stronger than fear. Together, we are a fortress." 7. The tide turns. Leviathan entered the battlefield. Its massive form tore through enemy lines like a meteor. Ground troops cheered as it shattered Valkyrie armored vehicles and launched a devastating electromagnetic pulse that crippled enemy communications. The resistance launched a counteroffensive, pushing the Valkyrie forces back from key strategic points. But the enemy was relentless. 8. The Last Stand. The final hours descended like a thunderstorm. In a ruined temple, Reyna made a last stand with a small contingent of fighters. The Valkyrie surrounded them, closing in. Bloodied and exhausted, Reyna delivered a speech broadcast live to all resistance forces. If we fall as warriors. If we live as legends. But we will never surrender. We are the fire that will burn their gods down. The battle erupted in a frenzy of fire and steel. Reyna fought with every ounce of strength, her blade a beacon of defiance. 9. Sacrifice and victory. As dawn broke, the resistance emerged victorious, but at a heavy cost. Leviathan lay damaged but functional. Thousands of human lives had been lost. Crane found Reyna wounded but alive among the rubble. He held her hand. We did it. She smiled weakly. This is just the beginning. A new dawn. Earth was battered, but free. The Valkyrie threat had been pushed back. Humanity stood united, scarred, but unbroken. Reyna and Crane, heroes forged in the crucible of war, vowed to carry the fight beyond Earth's skies. Because the final battle wasn't over, it had only just begun. The calm before the storm. The war had stretched humanity to its breaking point. Cities lay in ruin, families torn apart, yet the flame of resistance burned brighter than ever. In a secret command bunker beneath the ruins of the old United Nations headquarters in Geneva, Reyna's soul stood silently, staring at the starfield projected above the war table. Across that vast darkness loomed the final battleground, the Valkyrie homeworld, their cradle and fortress, 12 light years away. The place where the war had begun, and where it must end. Crane approached, armored, but weary. This is it, he said softly. Reyna nodded. One last fight. One last chance. 2. Operation Emberfall. The plan was audacious, an all-in assault on the Valkyrie homeworld's central hive, codenamed Operation Emberfall. It was a strike designed to cripple their command and control forever, shatter their will, and reclaim humanity's place among the stars. 3 dreadnoughts, Proteus, Ares Mk2, and the repaired Guardian formed the spearhead. Thousands of elite soldiers, scientists, and cyber warriors prepared for the assault. But more than firepower was needed. The neural virus Reyna and Crane had planted in the Valkyrie network during the Forge Spine mission still lingered, a ticking cognitive bomb inside the alien mind. They planned to detonate it now, as a final blow. 3. The long journey. The ships tore through the void once more, engines blazing, cutting a path through cold darkness. During the journey, memories surfaced. Reyna remembered faces lost, comrades, innocents, families. Crane thought of the first days of resistance, of moments when hope seemed impossible. In the cramped quarters, they sat in silence, sharing no words. The weight of history pressed on them. 4. Arrival. The Valkyrie homeworld, Varker Prime, loomed like a bruised jewel, covered in bioluminescent forests and jagged mountain ranges that gleamed beneath twin suns. But beauty masked a nightmare. Orbital defenses sprang to life instantly, spires of plasma and shield arrays erupted, lasers lanced toward the fleet. The dreadnoughts dove into the storm. The Battle of the Hive. Explosions rocked the fleet. Valkyrie warships swarmed, their numbers overwhelming. Swarm fighters buzzed like locusts. Reyna directed the defense. Hold formation. Concentrate fire on the plasma spires. Protect the boarding lances. Crane led the boarding force, prepared to deliver the final strike. The assault was brutal. On board the Hive Spire, the corridors throbbed with alien life. The air was thick with bioorganic hums and the cries of dying creatures. Crane and his team fought tooth and nail, slashing through grotesque defenders. 6. The final sacrifice. In the heart of the Hive, Reyna interfaced with the Valkyrie neural core. Her mind trembled as the old cognitive virus stirred to life, weaving through the alien mind like wildfire. But the Valkyrie fought back. Psionic blasts shattered neural pathways. Reyna screamed in pain, fighting to keep the virus alive. Behind her, Crane's team was pinned down, overwhelmed. In the ultimate moment, Crane made a choice. He charged a grenade, a fusion device, into a cluster of Valkyrie leaders. Go. I'll hold them. Reyna hesitated, But Crane's eyes were fierce. She ran. 7. The end of the war. The virus detonated. The hive shuddered. Alarms blared. Systems crashed. The Varkari neural network collapsed. One by one, alien ships lost coordination and fell from the sky. Crane's sacrifice bought the time they needed. Reyna barely escaped as the hive exploded behind her. 8. Aftermath. The fleet limped home. Earth was free, but victory was bittersweet. Thousands were gone. Crane was gone. Reyna held his dog tags close, whispering a vow. We will honor you. We will never forget. 9. A new beginning. The broadcast went out to all who survived, to all who resist. This war was not just for survival. It was for our spirit, our future. The last ember has not died. It burns brighter than ever. Humanity is ready to rise. Across the planet, fires blazed not of war, but of hope. Epilogue. Years later, Reyna stood among new recruits, training the next generation. Her voice firm, eyes bright. We are humanity. We fight with fire, with heart, with everything. The stars are ours to keep. The war is over, but our story is just beginning.